All right, I call this meeting, February 1st, 2022, meeting of the Winthrop Town Council to order. If you want to join us by Zoom, the phone number is 646-558-8656, and the ID number is 825-4639-2656#. Council Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Council Honan.
Here.
Council Fusillo.
Here.
Council Munson.
Here.
Council Belcher.
Here.
Council DeMarco.
Here.
Council Aiello.
Here.
Council Flockhart. Here. Vice President Ruggiero.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Yeah, there we go. I am here. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Councilor Ruggiero to lead us. Council Vice President Ruggiero.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone has received via email the minutes from January 18th, 2022. As circulated, are there any deletions, amendments? Do I have a motion to approve? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. General information recommendations, we were going to have a water study report, which is long in coming. And with the storm and the amount of havoc it's put on the town and the amount of resources it's taken and the incredible amount of work and effort by the DPW director, we have decided to postpone that 2 more weeks until the next council meeting, so that will be on the February 15th agenda. Now, we're going to have a public hearing on vote to appropriate free cash. I'm going to open the public hearing. This is that the town, this is concerning the free cash that was recently allocated by the state, and the motion is that the town council vote to appropriate certified free cash as presented in the attached memo. I will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone on Zoom or in the audience that would like to speak on the free cash allocation? We do have Zoom? Anybody?
Jeff Carson.
Yes, Jeff.
Hi, I would like to speak, but I'm sorry, it's not on the free cash. Different issue, if there was an open forum to speak.
All right, there will be a public comment period coming up. There'll be 2 coming up. Yep.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Karen Chavez, do you have a question?
Yes, I wonder if you could go into detail on the amount of free cash and where you're gonna distribute it to.
Yes, that motion will be coming out of finance, but to let you know now, the certified free cash amount was $2,274,000, $274,052. The distribution, a good percentage of it is stipulated in our financial policies, where we are having 30% going to capital stabilization. We're going to have 10% up to $300,000 go to building stabilization, and which we recently changed, 40% of the free cash is going to general stabilization, which will leave a balance. Now, there have been 4 requests by the town manager put in, which we will discuss more in on the finance committee. This will leave, depending on how the motions shake out, it will leave somewhere north of $500,000 left in free cash for us to use this year.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Seeing no other questions, any questions on the council on the public hearing? Any thoughts from the finance committee that met earlier this evening? Did you come out of, which we'll discuss in old business, but if you'd like to discuss now, any of your findings in the finance committee earlier?
Right, so after a long deliberation with the finance committee, we came out that we would like to keep certain items within the committee for now. That would include the paying class study, the enterprise fee study, and the IT plan and project management. There needs to be more discussion around how this money is being spent and the best use for that. Other than that, all things such as the general stabilization, capital stabilization, and building stabilization funds are all agreed upon in the town charter. And the North Essex Aggie assessment, we ended up reducing the amount. It was set at 50, but we reduced it down to 44 because the bill looks like it's going to be around the $44,000 range, a little less than that actually, but we thought it would be better to err on the side of caution rather than give the 50,000 and have too much and not be able to use it until next October. So that's what we came out. We gave a positive recommendation on the amended motion and kept, like I said, the paying class study, the enterprise fee study, and the IT plan and project management study within council for now, within committee for now.
Within committee. All right, thank you. Any other thoughts on free cash? Public hearing, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We will take that up under old business. Public comment now. Anyone on Zoom that wishes to be heard? Jeff?
Yes, hello everybody.
Please just state your name and precinct.
Sure. My name is Jeff Carson, and I'm going to take a guess on 2 in the Highlands, though, so maybe you guys can educate me on that.
We'll go with 4, but you can go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I do vote, but I just didn't know my precinct from here, so thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time, everybody. Grace Council members, Chief. I just want to speak very briefly on the school closure that occurred on Monday. And I just want to start off by saying that I'm super grateful for DPW, the people that work for DPW, the department. I think they work their butts off. I'm grateful we have them. This is not an indictment on them at all. But the point I'm coming from is serving as a board member for the Project Nimore. And in 30 seconds or less, we support 46 families here in Winthrop that have children. That's kind of one of the precursors to be a part of the project is you have children between 0 and 18. And that composition disposition is around 83 children, and you have about 60 some parents as a part of that, a part of the network that we service. And these are the most destitute families in our community. And there's certainly more others that we're not impacting and servicing, but these are the ones that we do service on a regular basis, struggling families with kids in our community specifically. And the impact of a school closure is devastating to these families. These children really depend on the breakfast, and they depend on that lunch. When they don't have it, it stresses the household. More importantly, or just as important, these parents really depend on working to earn money. And these are hourly workers, they clean houses, they work at grocery stores, and when they don't show up to work, they don't get paid. And when their kids are home, it's very difficult. And these families are already operating in the margins, facing the struggle of eviction, behind on bills, and that's a daily part of their lives. And when school is canceled, it further adds stress to their already very stressful situation. And I'm just bringing this to light to you because and I'm not saying that you aren't aware of this and aren't thinking about this, but frankly, if I wasn't part of this project, I wouldn't be thinking about it as much as I do, right? So I'm just trying to shed some light on some folks out there that are struggling, and when school closes, it adds further pressure to a particular situation. Now, I'm not here to solve the problem of snowplows, and definitely not here to criticize DPW, but what I am here to ask is, as you think about resources moving forward, or creative ways that you can move those resources around or allocate additional resources moving forward, I ask that you think about these families and DPW and how they can keep school open, on these days that we have snow, tremendous amount of snow, and prioritize, them, resources, funding, think about these families. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Again, super happy about DPW, super glad we have them. I think they're working their butts off. And I didn't want to call it critical of them, but I did want you to hear about, particular project, particular families that you may not be thinking about when these resources are being allocated. So I'll certainly take any questions if you have any, but otherwise, I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We really appreciate your comments. You made a lot of good points. I know, I can't speak for the superintendent, but I know she took this, as she always does, extremely seriously and tried to take into account not just the parking lots, obviously, of the schools, but to take into account even residential sidewalks that might not have been shoveled, or extra high mounds on corners that would distract from visibility, and trying to think of the children's safety on their way to school. But I think you brought out some great points, especially in terms of resources and how we might better allocate or allocate differently as we go into fiscal '23. But I very much appreciate your comments and take them very seriously.
Thank you.
Is there another hand up?
Todd McKay?
Yes, I'm not sure who that is.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I appreciate being here tonight. I want to call in. I'm sure maybe others will do the same. I'm not really sure. I've been watching Facebook comments and whatnot. First off, it's about the snow removal. I want to 100% make sure we recognize the staff behind the wheels of the equipment we had out for this storm, and make sure that those folks are absolutely recognized for the efforts they put in. With that said, I do want to express my disappointment with the way the storm was handled. This was a storm that we knew days and days away coming in. This wasn't a surprise storm. We thought we were getting 6 inches. We ended up with a foot. We knew we were a foot plus. I live on Washington Ave. I can tell you the last time Washington Ave saw a plow truck come down and plow the street was 8 p.m. on Saturday night. I know that because I went out and snow blow and shoveled and cleared my driveway. My daughter was moving out Sunday morning. When I went out Sunday morning at 6 a.m., there wasn't even a crust of snow in my driveway, so I know for a fact the plow didn't come down the street. And when we left town, there were ruts on Washington Ave, clearly, depicting the fact that a plow hadn't touched Washington Ave all night. Leaving Winthrop, as soon as we hit Belle Bridge, pavement. From pavement to Malden, to Brighton, over to Watertown, never hit a snowy street. We did side streets, main roads, and so on. I have a real problem with how poorly the town was plowed, and again, not on the guys and men and women behind the wheels of the trucks trying to get the streets clean. I don't know if it was a budget issue, an equipment issue. In my opinion, definitely a management issue, and I think that this is something that we need to look at, understand. Again, not a surprise storm. We knew this was coming, and it seems like we were super unprepared. I didn't see a plow on the roads on Sunday. Maybe the folks behind the wheels needed that break. I'm sure they did. But I think we need to be better prepared next time to clear this snow. A storm on Saturday shouldn't have closed school on Monday. We knew it was coming, and we just seemed very, very unprepared. And I think that's in a nutshell what I have to say. Again, I appreciate the folks behind the wheels pushing the snow around. I think there's still streets that need to be addressed. Winthrop Ave, I would say, Winthrop is probably, we probably lost a good 6 feet of road to date. From curb to where the snowbank ends is a good 3 feet on each side. Veterans Road this morning, bringing my daughter to daycare. No one can pull over, no one can get out of the way. It was a nightmare on Veterans Road to go to daycare. So I just want to bring that up. I know there's been a lot of, in the few Facebook groups, there's been a lot of frustration. And here we are Tuesday, and we still have roads that are snow covered and need attention. So I appreciate the time. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll learn from this and be better prepared the next time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Again, I will say that the town did have several meetings on this. It was absolutely not a surprise that, maybe 24 inches is a little on the historic side, and you could be prepared to a point. But I do know that the town and all the department heads took this extremely seriously, had numerous meetings on it. The plow drivers did work 26 straight hours, and they absolutely did get a break that you had mentioned. And that break was extensive to get them back ready to go. responsibility for this, or however we want to judge it. I'm extremely appreciative of the staff of the whole town and especially the DPW workers. Some of this is, the fact of the size of our community and the fact that there is not a lot of place to put the snow, and the onus comes to us making sure that the residents, we always ask, and they're always there to help us with storm drains and fire hydrants. And it's hard sometimes not to be snow blowing and blowing that snow right back onto the street. I think, the focus obviously was to try to get those schools done as much as we can. I know DPW worked again late until last night to try to go curb to curb on Pauline Street, Cross Street, and to try to get those parking lanes available for schools to make sure that they could open as successful as possible. And again, it's the safety. It's not just getting, once you're in the school, it's just the safety getting there. But again, the comments are all appreciated, and everybody can always do better, but I'm very proud of the work and the work ethic of the DPW department we have. We don't, and you mentioned budget earlier, obviously our budget is nowhere near Boston and Revere and Chelsea and surrounding communities and the amount of resources and staffing they have. But we absolutely, again, take your comments very seriously. And thank you, Todd. We'll go to in-house first, and then we'll go back to Zoom. Yes, Mr. Schmidt, just name and
Council
precinct.
President Lettieri, Precinct 5. And I just want to add, I apologize for missing that, but just as a side information, I was in Somerville today, big city obviously, several streets not plowed. They were still working to clear the streets in Somerville, so it's not an easy problem. So I understand people's frustrations, but even bigger cities with bigger budgets hadn't cleared all their streets.
I appreciate your comments. Back to Zoom, I believe, Julia?
Julia Wallace. Great, yeah, hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see all of you, but yeah, first I just wanted, it's really great to see the new counselors up there tonight. I missed the last meeting, so congrats, Counselor Belcher, Counselor Fusillo, Counselor Aiello, and Counselor Munson. So great to have so many new faces up there. Thanks for all you guys are doing. I do want to echo Jeff Parsons' comments earlier about the impacts of school closure on working families, our most vulnerable residents, particularly the Amore families that organization serves. I'm a volunteer with them as well, and I can attest to the amazing work that they do, and obviously our family business and marketplace supports them a lot directly. So also, sort of piggybacking on that, the impact not just of school closures on our most vulnerable families, but school access and access to our streets and roads and safety for people who can't afford or don't have access to a vehicle. Walking is the way to get around. For many, biking can be the way to get around, not because it's fun. You all know I love biking. I love to get people out and bike, and I'm lucky that it's an option for me, but I can also drive. That's not the case for a lot of our residents, and the state of our streets is a direct determinant of how accessible our town is to everybody, to all segments of our population. So I know you've heard a lot from me lately about these Shared Streets grants, and I've really been pushing this, so I don't need to say a lot on Zoom about it. I know the town manager is going to talk about this in his report, but we met last night, some of our Bike Winthrop leadership team. We always talk about how to make our streets more, safer, more enjoyable for biking, as well as walking, and all of that comes down to traffic calming. All of it comes down to how fast cars are driving, how recklessly they're driving on our streets. And yes, speed limits matter. Yes, signage matters, but design matters most. And people behave as a result of their surroundings and our built environment. And a lot of our streets are very conducive of speeding. And we're not alone. The whole nation is this way. Mass DOT is alarmed by the rates of skyrocketing traffic fatalities, even in the face of plummeting vehicle miles traveled. So that's largely a result of distracted driving or speeding. And so that's why they have unleashed this next round of funding, directed specifically at speed management, at road safety, not just to make it safer, for people to drive cars. That's super important. A lot of people have lost their lives in car-on-car accidents. But it's ultimately people on foot, on bicycle, in strollers, pushing walkers and wheelchairs and trying to access the bus who are most vulnerable. So I really hope that you will support our town manager and planner in pursuing one of these grants. This is the third or fourth round of them. Each one has had a different focus on things like placemaking or, winter streets, but it's a very clear focus on speed management and safety. So I sent over a little pamphlet of some design options that my partner Sarah Jane Fornes worked on with me. She might be here tonight. We hope you'll take those into consideration. It's not reinventing the wheel. We know where our traffic hotspots are, where our danger hotspots are, and those are really the places to focus on. And there's an array of intervention. There's a new website to help us. I know we don't have engineers on staff. We don't have a lot of capacity. Really lucky to have a planner. But we also have great, residents with time and skills and commitment who want to help. So I know it can be scary to take on grants because even though it's, I know there's no such thing as free money. These are zero match grants. We do have community assets to leverage. It doesn't have to all fall on the town. So please know that. And the return on the investments of these projects is enormous, usually in the form of human life. And in my view, that's really quite priceless. So I look forward to hearing the town manager's report on that later in this meeting. And thank you very much for your time. And
Thank you,
consideration
Julia.
this evening.
Anybody else? No?
Is Jeff,
No, he already,
he already talked?
yes.
Okay, nope, that's it.
All right. Correspondence, Council Clerk?
No, I did not receive any.
All right, committee reports. Finance, we already went over, but if you want to give a brief discussion again, a brief recap.
Right,
Councilor
so,
Fusillo.
do you want me to read the motion? Or-
Sure.
So the motion was read that I move that the town council vote to appropriate certified free cash as presented in the attached memo or take any other action thereto. Upon deliberation, like I mentioned earlier, we came forward with a positive recommendation, a unanimous positive recommendation on the general stabilization, capital stabilization, and building stabilization funds, as well as an adjusted number on the North Essex Aggie assessment, bringing it down from 50,000 to 44,000. The estimated bill was said to be just lower than that, so we wanted to appropriate that cash better to save us money rather than having that money come back to us later and not be able to use it until next October. As for the paying class study, enterprise fee study, and IT plan and project management, we decided to keep those in council to gather a little bit more information on those and to make a better judgment, better decision on those. So we came out with a positive recommendation on the amended motion.
Thank you, Councilor Fusillo. And Councilor Flockhart, did you have a public health and safety meeting?
Yes, we met earlier this evening by Zoom, and we had a quorum, although not a full committee. We discussed the National Grid proposal, and we're able to talk to the property owners involved, and we are coming forward with a recommendation to approve. On the public safety building, we discussed it briefly, but felt that we really needed to have a larger meeting to discuss more of it. And we are quite tended forward to no action until we can get a meeting on it, which I understand the council president. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Flockhart. Yes, we do plan on moving forward with further discussion on public safety building options in the very near future. Thank you. Was that it?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Town Manager's report.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. So, the stormwater comments on the storm, my response and my report will be covering the storm as well. I think it's important to keep in perspective that we've had 3 outside contractors. It's the only amount that we can get. Most of them have personal pickup trucks and not big trucks that you see. Those are going to the city of Boston. Just to clarify Facebook rumors, which I don't tend to respond to Facebook rumors, RDBW do not get $200 an hour. Okay, they get $18.54 and then overtime, after that. So Our price points are not competitive. We did bring in additional help for Steve after the storm because no one was available during the storm. So you see additional front-end loaders and a 30-foot tractor trailer around town. We're moving snow now and moving it out of the most important areas, intersections, business districts, where people park a lot, the side streets, to get to every side street in town. We'll see spring before that we can do that. So just to give in perspective, we've moved about 25 loads of 100 tons of snow in each load. So, you know, we're moving that up to the compost pile and the nursery and stuff like that, where they're not being occupied at this time. So a lot of snow is being moved. I think this is the only community in all the communities that were mentioned tonight that you'll see the DPW director and the assistant DPW director driving front-end loaders, moving snow, because there are 10 people shot in DPW. 4 was eliminated through the budget process. 3 are out on disability or leave, and then we have the remaining slots open but unable to fill it because we don't have a competitive price point on wages there. So please, I'm not making excuses. We clear the most important streets first. We focused around schools and work our way out from the schools. And then we worry about our lots last. Our lots are still, they've been plowed, but they're not been cleared. We need those people to move out before we can really clear a lot. DPW doesn't, you know, we're hesitant putting blades back down now because you're gonna plow people back in, and we realize that. So we'll work problem areas as we see them. We'll prioritize those problem areas, and we'll attack them on a daily basis. Cleanup will go long into this weekend. And we have, you know, most important thing I got from my DPW director, is the level of disrespect on our roadways for the DPW workers. Throwing snow at them in their trucks, telling them to go F themselves on certain streets. You know, they're trying to clear and people are pushing it back at them. So tell your neighbors it's illegal to throw snow on the street and call the police when they do that, so we can find them. I think that's the only thing that's gonna work. We don't wanna find people, we'd rather have cooperation. You know, so it's certainly an issue, and we're working to resolve that issue. We'll work through the budget process to add to DPW. If you have no one to put in the trucks, having more trucks doesn't solve our problem. So we'll definitely, we're always looking for additional outside sources that we can hire and bring in during major storms. Back in 2015, we hired a Buffalo crew that was here for 3 weeks with us, really pushed the snow, but did a lot of damage in the process of pushing that snow. So, you know, they don't have the same care and patience that our own DPW has here. So I want to thank the DPW director, the assistant DPW director, for being willing to get in those trucks and do the work and lead by example and not just sit behind directing people. They're working managers, and to all their four persons as well. Did a great job. I'll move on. Inspectional Services has also been out there trying to address people who would just push the snow into the street and leaving these big mounds down on Shirley Street, up on Pleasant Street. There's a couple of these contractors that just push everything out. We're going around finding those people, the residents and business owners, for doing that, to try to correct that behavior as well. Safe Streets grants, you know, my priority is always to take pressure off DPW, especially with the short staff. I'll be looking for speed reduction measures in that grant with the planner and the DPW director that absolutely does that. Puts devices out to assist, but also takes the pressure that no maintenance is involved, that the contract is being done through the grant to install them, and that type of stuff. I think that's the most important thing we can do. Looking at, obviously, handicapped accessibility and crossing areas, speed reduction measures, and things of that nature. So we'll work through that prospect. Going to grants again, TIPS project. Our attorney has been assigned by K&P Law to start working with the DPW director and the planner on the next stages of that project, which will be surveying people's property. So the property that we have to actually go on and utilize while we're doing the repairs on the TIPS project. So more to come on that. We're starting to work through those processes as well. So Boilers in town, there's 3 major boilers that we need to come to council for funding. The police department boiler will be on the motion next week. Fire department beach station boiler will be on as probably a motion next week as well. And the library has 4 quadrant burner. 3 of the quadrants are not working. They're down to 1 quadrant in the library. So I'm waiting for Rich Safuni and Chief Wiley to get me proposals on the fire in the library. Police department proposal came in today, and you'll get that. The police department proposal solves the problem. There was 2 fires over there last year that was never corrected, and so we're looking to correct those issues so they don't catch fire again. Meredith Hurley, just Community Salute Award. She'll be receiving this weekend at UMass Amherst. It's sponsored by the Massachusetts Lottery and nominated by Karen Chavez. So I just want to thank Karen, congratulate Meredith. It's a well-deserved award. You know, everyone thinks, including my children, thinks that like I make all the calls in town. That's far from the truth. So the superintendent has authority and jurisdiction to open and close schools. We do work with the superintendent, you know, based on the streets and conditions that we saw and the sidewalks not being clear. I support her decision. I understand what Mr. Carson's saying, and that's always something at the forefront of our mind, is how do we get lunches and breakfasts to people in need and children in need. So I'm sure I will have further discussions with the superintendent, but it's very, very important to know my lines and where my line ends and where the superintendent picks up. But we all collaborate, especially during the storm meetings and stuff like that. So just wanted everyone to understand the process, which is more important than anything else, is understanding everyone's role in the process. Meredith Hurley was kind enough to send me a report. We're at percent positives 18.8 for 19 to 122. We're down from 25% percent positives from prior, and she also is reporting she expects a significant decrease lower this week than what we're reporting to you now. So we're at 73% fully vaccinated people. 38% of our vaccinated people have boosters, so we encourage people to actually get boosters. I think it helps significantly. And, you know, if you need help finding a booster, please contact Meredith Hurley's office. She'll be happy to walk us through that. That's all I have for you, Mr. President, and be willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, and I'll open up for questions in a minute. Just again on Meredith, we had last week 60 confirmed cases, down from 160 the week before, which is a significant improvement, and we expect those numbers, like the town manager just said, to be significantly lower this week. I'll open it up for questions. Councilor DeMarco.
Before I ask my question, and you might not know the answer to this, Chief, I just wanted to say I did receive a correspondence from Shannon Poolhouse regarding. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I did receive that too. I haven't responded to Sharon. My apologies, but
Okay.
I will get back to her.
What I wanted to ask you is I actually heard some really good news that we were actually had the lowest instances of COVID in Suffolk County. Is that accurate?
I don't have that data, but I'd be happy to ask Meredith to send everyone an email on that data.
Okay.
Councilor Munson.
Thank you, President Lettieri, and thank you, Town Manager, and the DPW. I thought the effort that they put forth during the storm was remarkable. I saw Aaron in front of my studio today, and he was whipping around with that front loader like it was his baby. It was just unbelievable. But my comment stems from a comment made to me by one of my constituents, and he brought it to my attention that Airbnbs, there's a lot of Airbnbs that aren't necessarily permitted and going through the regular process, and I looked into it a little further. There seems to be a discrepancy in terms of the total number that are being advertised online versus the ones that are registered with the town. And I was just wondering if you could comment on that, the oversight of that, and then maybe where this is going. I know that Airbnbs are both a growing trend and profitable, but at the same time they can affect the town in terms of both revenue and safety, and you don't want to stress out abutters either. So I was just wondering if you could just comment on that.
Sure. So a lot of time and energy was put into that ordinance, the Airbnb ordinance. Police, fire, inspectional services all weighed in at the council level for that ordinance. And I would absolutely say that there is a discrepancy in what you see online to what we have registered. through Al Legee's office, Inspectional Services. I've talked to Al a couple of times on this. He has began his enforcement on Airbnbs. Again, a lot of times we can't get the information from Airbnb that the member can. So we're looking on how we can become a member, even though we don't have a house. So we can get that information, or we can get Airbnb to cooperate. Like Boston has a lot more leverage than Winthrop, but how can we get them to cooperate with us and give us those lists on a monthly basis? Even we'll accept them on a monthly basis to make sure that people are registered. It's about safety. It's about making sure that they don't have stoves in those rooms. Or hot plates, we know who's registered in hotels and motels you got to register in. For the same reasons, we want to make sure the registration's up to date and that sort of stuff. So it's about safety, making sure that it's not overcrowding. So Al Legee, I'll speak with them tomorrow. I have already asked them to reach out to Airbnb to see if we can get some kind of cooperative level communications going with them. But it comes down to enforcement. Inspectional Services has Al, a full-time clerk, a part-time clerk, and the rest of the inspections are part-time, 20 hours a week. We are looking at that in the budget for next year to increase for another full-time inspector that will focus around home inspections specifically. Our ordinance says that more than a three-family needs to be inspected, and we do it on a quarter each year or a 4-year period. So by the time you're done, you're starting your quarters again. So again, that takes more than one person full-time. So we are looking at where can we leverage resources. We've modernized his department this year through the budget process, and he has a computerized database on building permits now. So people can go online from their homes before they have to walk in and give a slip, and then they put it into a spreadsheet. So we're looking at that, how can we increase processes, saving employees time so we can get to these inspections.
Thank you. I will say that if you do need some more help on this, I myself would be willing to help, as well as this gentleman from our precinct 2 has got more than enough energy for all of us to jump on board and help with the review of the ordinance itself. So. Yeah,
and that's why I think Al has some suggestions too, and I know there's a ordinance review committee potentially either coming up or continuing, and we'll be looking at some of these ordinance changes. I also want to look at the process because I've heard from people who own Airbnbs the process is complicated, it's complex, it's aggravating to them. So how can we look at that process and make it easier and friendlier to the user to increase registrations, right? People don't register usually not because they want to violate the law. It's usually because they're frustrated or aggravated in some type of process. So we're going to look at the process as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terry.
Councilor Aiello.
Well, just to pick up on the Airbnb element, just an observation and a suggestion. The suggestion is new State Senator Lydia Edwards wrote the Airbnb regulations for the city of Boston, so you might want to contact her staff to figure out how to get more leverage in getting information out of Airbnb. They did a terrific job, and whether or not we can learn from that and use her office to be helpful to be able to get the data that we want, I think would be one. The other thing that's not frequently mentioned, but I know when the issue was up for debate, is Airbnb and the distortion and the affordability of homes for Winthrop people who want to live in them, right? All of a sudden, you've got a home, you've got additional income coming in. Those homes sell for more money because of the revenue coming in. An old-fashioned family of 4 who just wants to live there can't compete with the price, and it really distorts the character of neighborhoods. And we've got to be careful about how much of that we allow in this community, which I know is the intent of the ordinance.
Yeah.
And so I'm one of those who prefer less public safety, all those other issues you described, but also the distortion of affordability for our children who want to stay in the community. I'm happy on the shared streets orientation about traffic safety, pedestrian safety. It is really a situation that's deteriorated since COVID came in. Even predates that, but to me that's a top priority to get people to slow down, to be respectful about sidewalks, crosswalks, et cetera, and anything we can do. I can tell you, every Saturday and Sunday crossing Bartlett Road across Pleasant Street, if I don't run across a intersection with signs, I would probably get killed every other weekend, right? And I don't have 9 lives, so I can't take my thing. The last is, when you come back on the boilers, I worry about sometimes, my observation, lumpiness around things. There was the year, I think was 2017, when we lost all of the trucks in the DPW all at the same time. That's a very disturbing trend. Losing 3 boilers at around the same time sort of just feels off, just given the size of the town. It would be great to have the data on the age of the boilers, the type of the boilers, maintenance records on the boilers, preventative maintenance, et cetera, and how they compare against the maintenance manual suggestions. Because I really do worry that we don't put enough money into maintenance and keeping things in good working order, and then we end up with these lumpy capital surprises. And over the long term, it's a more expensive way to do business and not in the taxpayer interest. So if you can have.
Yeah, I spoke with the DPW building maintenance, Rich Safuni, about these very same issues, and to looking into them as we're replacing them, how we're recording them, what's the projected lifespan of them, and to try to circle and come back into a more maintenance-oriented capital plan. But over the years, you know, some of these things weren't funded because other priorities, or, you know, things get bumped around. So I understand, you know, what you're looking for, and I'll talk to Rich Safuni and.
I think it's important for him to have a strong voice in this, because it really does cost the taxpayer more money to not provide the resources to allow the department to maintain this stuff. So I hope they have a larger voice, and I, for one, will support more money into maintenance. You get better service in the buildings when these things work all the time, and you get it at a lower price point over the long term.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Before I go into the school department report, I just want to go back to correspondence for a minute, and I know, Council Clerk, we did have one today. If you could just discuss that a little bit, please.
We did receive a correspondence from Shannon Poulos about the budget, and the problems in the budget, and it's a longer email, which I will include in the minutes as record.
Thank you very much. School committee met last Monday. The discussion again surrounded attendance, which was incredibly improved compared to the first couple of weeks of January. Both staff and students, attendance came back remarkably, and my understanding is close to around the 90% mark now. The school is offering, I believe starting next Monday, COVID testing program with which the parents will opt in or opt out of. If they do opt in, they will receive a kit. I believe every other Monday, the kit will include 2 tests, one for 1 week, one for the following week, for the students to have, and have that little sense of comfort there. And there would be some sort of reporting process included, obviously, if they did test positive. So that was another item discussed. On a lighter note, with a lot of snow and everything else around us, this weekend, the Winthrop Middle School Drama Society will be performing Frozen Junior at the Neil Shapiro Center for Performing Arts at Winthrop Middle High School. The performances will be Friday and Saturday night at 7 and Sunday afternoon at 2. Tickets can be had online or at the door. I would encourage people to attend. It's a great night out, and support Winthrop Middle School drama. On the Winthrop High School drama, they are going to present a dinner-less theater for 2022. Many years in the past, they've had dinner theater up at Prince House of Pizza, and it's been incredible. I've attended many of them. Just with the close quarters and everything else, they thought to think out of the box a little bit, and they're going to have a dinner-less theater at the Neil Shapiro Center at the middle high school. Those performances, and this will be Rewrite the Stars. And this will be Tuesday, February 8th and Wednesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. and the tickets are $15 at the door. And that concludes the school department report. We will go now into old business. And there was a motion that did come out of finance, that the town council vote to appropriate certified free cash as presented in the attached memo. Now, the certified free cash was $2.274052. The allocation for general stabilization is $809,821. For capital stabilization is $734,700. For building stabilization, it is $75,000. Those numbers are all by the financial policies enacted by the council. The motion that came out also had the North Essex Aggie assessment of $44,000. So the ending free cash balance, if this was passed, would be $610,731. And there were 3 items left in committee. That was the pay and class study, the enterprise fee study, and the IT plan and project management. So this did come out of committee with positive recommendation, does not require a second. Any discussion on this? I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Council Honan?
Yes.
Council Fusillo?
Yes.
Council Munson?
Yes.
Council Belcher?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Aiello?
Yes?
Council Flockhart?
Yes.
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, National Grid petition, Council Flockhart, that came out of committee. Do you have the motion?
I guess, was that motion in the, package?
No.
Yeah, there wasn't a motion in the package. And I didn't realize I had the right one.
That's okay, no. Do you have the motion, a motion for that?
I would just say that you could just simply have the motion to approve the National Grid project number, petition number 304-78309 on Terrace Ave.
Yep. Okay, so there is a motion that came out of committee with positive recommendation to approve the National Grid petition number 304-78309, Terrace Ave. Any discussion on the motion? It came out of committee again with positive recommendation, does not require a second. I will ask for a roll call vote.
Council Honan?
Yes.
Council Fusillo?
Yes.
Council Munson?
Yes.
Council Belcher?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Flockhart?
Yes.
Council Aiello?
Yes.
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes. Next item under old business is Winthrop taxi rate increase. That is going to be referred out to Rules and Ordinance and report back at the next meeting.
Yep.
There are several appointments I have tonight regarding town council subcommittees, which were already passed out to the councilors. We've already had 2 subcommittees this evening. Those standing committees are on the website, I believe, correct?
They will be tonight.
They will be tonight on the website. We'll also go over a little bit on the town manager search and where we are with that. The town entered into a contract with a company called Paradigm. That company has already hit the ground running. They have posted the position in early January. They took applications up until last Friday. They are now trying to get a packet together with all the applications for the search committee, along with some sort of tiered system that they're trying to work with us to go over qualifications. The town manager search committee is as follows. Karen Chavez is the chair, Lisa Howard or her designee, Councilor Rob DeMarco, Vincent Crossman, Peter Gill, John Macero, and Shannon Poolhouse. And that committee will be meeting with just to give everybody a time process as how this will probably go. That committee will be meeting the week of February 7th to go over the packet, see the initial instructions, talk to Paradigm. Over the next several weeks and probably months, they will narrow that list down probably to the 13 to 15 range where they're going to interview. Those interviews, they will be conducting them. Those are not public interviews. Eventually, that committee will whittle it down probably to 3 or 4 names which they will bring forward to the council. The council will then have, at that point, the candidates will be told that this was now a public process. The council will then have the opportunity to interview these people in front of the council, and then the council president will submit a name for nomination, and that's how the process will go. This process, again, the goal is by June 1st, but the hope is the end of April, early May. And the hope for the interim town manager is next week. Also, that we were able, and I mentioned this before, that we were able to, we did get legal advice asking, the charter dictates that we do a town ordinance and town charter review every 5 years. This was done in 2020, 2015, 2010. 2020, due to COVID, due to a special representative election, it didn't offer the suffice amount of time to really go over all the potential ordinance changes and charter changes that might be recommended to the council. I am not 100% ready with this list as of yet, so I will be appointing this list at our next council meeting on February, I believe it's the 15th. And they will have a period of time where they will go over each and every ordinance, or as many as they can, and go through the charter as well as they can, and come back with us with changes. The ordinance changes will obviously have a big part with the Ordinance Review Committee, but the charter changes, depending on what they are, if it's a non-substantive change, if we wanted to, well, for example, if we wanted to change the amount of councilors, if they came back with a recommendation to change the amount of councilors, that would be considered the substantive change. That would have to go before the voters of the town. If they wanted to go back and say we want to have meetings, 3 meetings a month instead of 4 or instead of 2, that would be more of a non-substantive change that the council can vote on. But they will come back with a report for us. We have gone through, this would be our 3rd full one, and there have been some ordinance changes, but we really haven't had the ability to dig really deeply into the ordinances, and there were many questions that we have, and we could see even as items come up. And on the charter side, the same thing. There were many, for example, well, I guess I don't want to get into my opinions of them, but even the way positions are picked, if somebody drops, if it's, why should a body bigger have more of an impact on a decision than the body that they're working with? There are different changes that might be looked at. So I'm encouraged that we have the opportunity to do this and really take the time to do it well. And so there will be more to come for that on February 15th. We did have a motion earlier last meeting by me, actually, to eliminate the golf course area in the Little League A field from being considered for possible areas, sites of public health and or public safety building, or take any other action relative thereto. We discussed it briefly at our last meeting. There was some thought that we want to potentially not be as drastic as to say that those sites might be, off the table completely, never to be thought of again. But I think, personally, I think it's important that we realize that there are extreme conditions with both of those sites. Also, the ability for those sites to be able to maintain their viability and to continue moving forward without that looming threat over their head that they could be demised in a matter of time. So I think it's very important that we as a council set some sort of tone for the town. And whether it be to eliminate the site or whether it be to say, as of now, we are moving on from those 2 sites and we have, other thoughts and we're going to be focused on other areas. But I would leave that open to the council for discussion. So there is a motion currently on the table. Is there a second of the motion for discussion? All right, there's a second by Councilor Aiello, and I'll move to Councilor DeMarco for discussion.
Well, I just wanted to mention that Councilor Flockhart brought that up in her meeting today, and I thought she wanted to sit on it, but I'm not sure. I don't want to put words in Councilor
That's fine.
Flockhart's.
We could ask Councilor Flockhart. She's right there.
Council President,
Yes.
I am reluctant to take these 2 off. Of the 8 sites that were recommended, 2 of them are smaller than the current facilities. Two of them are barely larger than the current facility. Three of them are large, and those two are the ones you are asking to take off. I recognize that we have additional costs other than what was in the proposal by Kessel Booz, but I suspect that all the other sites have additional costs as well. I would really like to discuss it further in a bigger meeting and really go over these sites.
Okay.
Almost all of them have problems.
Any other discussion? Councilor Aiello.
Sort of want to reiterate what I had talked about at the last meeting, which is my sense of the study is that it was not managed well, and that there was a strategic error in the direction that was provided to the consultant, and that was it was an all-or-nothing joint facility or nothing at all, which drives you to larger sites, which this town has a lot of difficulty accommodating, as you can see by the vulnerabilities of each of the alternatives that have been presented. Furthermore, I really worry about in a town the size of Winthrop, which has the right size for the town, but a minimum police and fire first responder force, to put them all in one location together. Should we lose those facilities through one way or another, we will have lost 100% of our first responder capability. I think that is a vulnerability that the study should have asked. And as we move forward, I would hope that we could look at solutions where we could have a fire station in one place, a police station in one place, and which is more responsive to site availability around town, as well as put us in a less vulnerable position in terms of losing 100% of our first responder capability.
Okay. Councilor Munson.
Terry, I would imagine it's too late at this point to ask if that study could include foundational costs.
Well, nothing's ever too late, but there were a lot of other issues with those two sites, but again, it's, you could do anything with money, right? You could ask for them to give you any kind of study you want.
Well,
But yeah, yes, it's possible.
I didn't want to add any costs, because I thought that the cost was already kind of expensive and it was fruitless in a sense. But I just thought that if they could, as part of that, their standardized pricing, or however they came to that point, if we could get some kind of estimates on foundation, not just for those municipal buildings, but for other possible buildings on those same locations in the future. Just curious if that was something that we could ask them to add the cost.
Right, I think in anything future, we would ask of them or any other firm, we would make sure that we include, for example, they said in like the Little League field or the golf course, they said this doesn't include, obviously, well, they didn't say it didn't include all the structural stuff of the foundation and stuff, but they also said it doesn't include replicating the golf course or to move the Little League field. And these are all costs that we have to be aware of, and we don't have the expertise to just say it's gonna cost X amount of money and where it's gonna go. But that's fine. Any other discussions on this, Councilor Belcher?
I think there's major conservation considerations, especially for the golf course site. And I get the idea of not taking things completely off the table, but I think that one, at least we know, probably wouldn't be viable long-term. So I'd say I'd be comfortable definitely taking that out of consideration.
Okay, Councilor DeMarco.
I'm thinking maybe there's a way that we can, take things, move forward and continue the conversation and still have some language that will open things up. So what I would like to do, and Councilor Ruggiero and I had discussed this a little bit, I would like to make a motion, I would like to amend the motion to say, given the facts, feedback, and information at the current time, the town council votes to suspend the Little League field and the golf course from consideration for the public safety building, and requests that the town manager provide other options for the council to evaluate.
Okay, so other than the first sentence of that, can you just reread that motion again?
Yep. Given the facts, feedback, and information at the current time, the town council votes to suspend the Little League field and the golf course from consideration for the public safety building and requests that the town manager provide other options for the council to evaluate. That allows us to
So
continue
that's-
the conversation
Yep.
and at the same time give them peace of mind that we're not taking action.
Well, that's an amendment to my motion, to the motion on the table. Is there a second to the amendment?
Council President,
Yes?
there are 2 golf course sites.
I'm not aware of the second one.
There are 2 though. One of them is the maintenance site next to,
Well,
the little-
we're only talking about items that have been presented to us right now. We're just talking about the
This was
7th.
presented in the Kessel Cruz report. It was one of the, there were 2 golf course sites of the 8 options.
It was in their report. It was not recommended.
Right. I can't imagine that we would even consider, after we just spent $460,000 on a shed to tear it down within a 1 or 2 year period, along with the dog park that I'm sure would be in the way, some way, shape, or form. But, if we want it.
We're going to remove 3 sites.
Well, I didn't say that, but if that's what, I will ask for a clarification on the motion.
The motion was to include the golf course as a whole and the Little League field.
Okay, so I guess, Councilor Flockhart, we are including any option on the golf course as well as the Little League field to suspend thoughts on that as of now. First of all, is there a second on the motion for discussion? On the amendment?
Second the amendment
Okay,
to the
Councilor
original
Ruggiero.
motion. Yeah. So, okay, I think what we're trying to do here is just build consensus around what not to do. And I don't.
Eliminate the option.
Exactly, right.
Try
And that's, whatever. We can say, here's what we want to do, or here's what we can say we don't want to do. We're taking the path. Let's say this is what we don't want to do. So I think the spirit behind the motion is to give a good faith word to those 2 organizations that this is not a priority of this council. This is not a goal of ours to make their lives any more difficult than they already are, and gives them some peace of mind to move forward. At the same time, this gives us the flexibility that if we do go through 100 options, and our only options are these 2 or 3 sites, we're not completely taking it off the table. I think that's what this accomplishes, and with the request to the administration to provide us with some more options, we can explore things like Councilor Aiello had mentioned, because I do think that's a very valid point that I'd like to echo. Having all of our first responders, including potentially public health, in one building is something that we got to think about. So I think that motion or the amendment accomplishes both of those things. I also want to respect the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and I sat in on that meeting earlier today, and they were withholding any recommendation coming out of committee. So, I could vote on this now. I could also wait if the committee would like to study it further, but just felt like I'd give my 2 cents there.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment?
Procedural.
Councilor Aiello.
If I wanted to make a friendly amendment to the amendment, I'd wait for this to pass first and then.
Yes, you wait for the amendment to pass.
I'll wait. And then I have.
All right, so there's an amendment on the table, and I will just say that my 2 cents is I think that we're almost beating a dead horse here. I mean, it's been, the better part of 2 meetings to discuss something that I think it's pretty obvious does not seem to be the logical thing to do. And I respect and I understand the spirit of the motion of the amendment by Councilor DeMarco and Ruggiero to change the verbiage. And I support the amendment, I support the original motion, but, so we're gonna take a vote on the amendment, which is, restate, Councilor DeMarco?
I'm gonna put my code in my phone. the amendment to the motion, given the facts, feedback, and information at the current time, the town council votes to suspend the Little League field and the golf course from consideration for the public safety building and requests that the town manager provide options for the council to evaluate.
All right, and that's been seconded, it's been discussed. I'll take a roll call vote on that. All right, we'll take a roll call vote on the amendment, and then we can see what Council Ayala chooses to do.
Council Honan? Yes. Council Fusillo?
Yes.
Council Munson?
Yes.
Council Belcher?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Aiello?
Yes?
Council Flockhart?
No.
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes. So now we have an amended motion on the floor. Discussion on the amended motion.
Sure. So the first amendment would be to insert, because I worry about the not in my backyard, people yell and we say, okay, we're not doing it, is to recognize that there are ongoing operations in these facilities, and as a special consideration. So after your language of from consideration, I would add, given the nature of the ongoing operations of those facilities, i.e. you got an active golf course and you got an active Little League field. These are just not sites being fallow, and that sort of narrows the intervention that we're taking.
I have no problem with that.
And then at the back end, when you ask the town manager to present us with additional options, I'd like to include which shall include options for moving forward with separate fire and police facilities. So,
Yeah.
you can find those.
So two amendments added to the end of those motions, one being to say that basically as the facilities are being run by Little League and the golf course, and to say that the options that we're asking the town manager to come forward with could potentially be a public safety building or could be separate facilities for fire and police. So there's an amendment to the original motion, to the amended motion. Is there a second to that? Second by Councilor Belcher. Any further discussion on Councilor Aiello's amendment to the amendment? Councilor Munson.
Council President, I was just curious, does this preclude or include the ability to rehab the current ones that we currently have?
Of course, that's got nothing to do with this motion. That's something that would come forward from.
And then, and my other question is, how like binding is this motion? So if we,
It's as binding as we want it to be.
Okay, so then absolutely.
But I mean, the intent is absolutely 100% there. We're not saying it to make it up. We're saying it because, I'm saying it because it's truly what I believe. It's not in the best interest of the town to go forward with those two locations.
And it
That's
behooves
why I'm
us to actually narrow our options so that we can get further along in this conversation and make some progress. I
Correct.
absolutely agree.
Move the amendment, please. Roll call vote.
Council Honan?
Yes.
Council Fusillo?
Yes.
Council Munson?
Yes.
Council Belcher?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Aiello?
Yes.
Council Flockhart?
Yes.
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes. All right, so now let's vote on the motion as amended and amended, which, to reiterate, is, and I'm not gonna say the exact verbiage at this point, but it's basically to take the golf course and the Little League A field off the priority list for this council in terms of public safety locations, as these properties are still being used in their intended purposes, and to ask the town manager to come back with us with with different options that may or may not include a public safety facility or individual options for fire and police. Okay, can I ask for a roll call vote for that?
Excuse me. Council Honan? Yes. Council Fusillo?
Yes.
Council Munson?
Yes.
Council Belcher?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Aiello?
Yes.
Council Flockhart?
No.
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes, thank you. Moving on, the E.B. Newton Clock Tower, this is old business. This is not requiring a motion. This is just to bring up the fact that this was part of the fiscal 2022 budget, where we had allocated funds for the repair of the complete repair of the E.B. Newton Clock Tower. It is a historical building. We have a responsibility to maintain it. It is in complete and utter disrepair right now. This was a priority of Councilor Farino, and I just want to confirm that this is in the process of being done and updated. I am hoping that we would have an RFP out within the next couple of weeks.
It's my understanding that's been moved to procurement for the RFP process, and to hope everything is in line for the spring and to get working on that project.
All right.
Question.
Yes.
Is it RFP for the engineering or for the actual rehabilitation?
The rehabilitation work. It's a historical site, so it's only a very narrow amount of people that can perform that work.
One other thing, is
Yes.
there, you said that, I agree with you, the building is in deteriorated condition. Is there a report on its condition and what we would need for fulsome rehabilitation of that?
Of the whole building, or of the?
Of the whole building.
Of the whole building?
Not of the whole building.
Not of the whole
It's
building.
focused on the clock tower, I'm sorry.
So we don't have a report on, this is so bad, and over the next 10 years, you're gonna do this, and that.
You know, again, as the interim town manager, I'm not aware of any, so I will ask around to the building manager,
Okay.
and also Larissa, who keeps all the files.
Yeah, if there is, I think the council would probably appreciate
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Mr. President, I know
Yes.
we're talking about the public safety building, and I know this portion is not on your agenda, so I'd ask that you consider it for next meeting's agenda. Are we to also remove any potential consideration of the old middle school site?
Okay.
And I ask that just not to waste money, and bring something back that the council doesn't even want to entertain.
Right.
Because they have other thoughts or
And I think,
priorities there.
you know, the goal of the council, and we'll talk about this a little later and what we're going to be doing in the upcoming month, but the goal is to, and I think Councilor Munson mentioned it earlier too, is try to, you know, whittle down those options and come to a resolution on, you know, whether it be the middle school side or the public safety facility, and come to the citizens with an idea that we have vetted out incredibly well, and we've looked at all the options and we've whittled it down. As long as you keep 15 things on the board, it's gonna be very hard to come to some sort of consensus, so we will put that on the agenda. All right, under new business, I'm just presenting that the town council vote to reinstitute the senior tax relief program to reflect the state minimum wage. The program will continue to provide a maximum of $750 tax credit per household, or take any other action relative thereto. State minimum wage recently went up to $14.25, I believe, is the beginning of January. So this will just reinstitute the program with reflecting that new minimum wage. This is something that I think we could do now. It's you know, we're not reinventing the wheel here. This was not done last year due to COVID, and we want to get this program reinstated. Do I have any objections to that?
Not an
Councilor
objection, but
Ruggiero.
just a question.
Vice President Ruggiero.
Could, I think this would be good for myself as well as some of our new colleagues here, but what are some of the roles and responsibilities these folks had done in the past? Because from what I understand, they were extremely helpful to the town operations. I think someone was in the clerk's office not too long ago, and it really, it's a program I think that we should talk about more often.
It's an incredible program.
You know, how folks can get involved and things like that before we vote on it.
Yeah, so it's usually managed by Kathy Dixon at the senior center, and she surveys the departments and their needs. You know, in the clerk's office, it's sometimes, you know, helping with the ballot envelopes and getting things mailed and organizing and stuffing envelopes, or making sure that someone's there at the counter while the other employees are doing work. So it varies throughout depending on the person's skill. You know, it's certainly the town manager's office has utilized them in the past, and Larissa goes on lunch, there's someone there to greet the public. So it really, depending on the department and the use and what their needs are.
Sure.
Sometimes one department might get 2 or 3, because other departments don't need them, or because that's where the workload is, right? So they'll work less hours because the minimum wage has increased. So you know, we have to focus that and make sure that they work the amount of hours that the law allows them to work.
Got it.
But so it'll be a small decrease. I mean, not talking anything significant, but since we're talking about it, you should be aware of it.
So if folks are interested, they can go to the Mystics,
Kathy Dixon. At the
Kathy
senior
Dixon.
center, we will
Senior
put out, once the council votes to re-implement it, since it was suspended by the council, we will then get information out to the public on this through Facebook and mailings as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? If I could just ask for a roll call vote for that.
Council Honan?
Yes.
Council Fusillo?
Yes.
Council Munson?
Yes.
Council Belcher?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Aiello?
Yes.
Council Flockhart?
Yes,
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes.
Thank you.
And just also, I just want to talk about the Airport Hazards Committee a little bit. Council Belcher was chair of that committee, and unfortunately now has to step down. That committee has had some incredibly generous people with their time over many, 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 many years, including but not limited to Jerry Falbo and Richard Banks. And I think that committee has been underutilized for years, and not that we don't appreciate all the committees, but have not given the appreciativeness that it deserves. I am trying to get in touch with legal now to see if we could kind of reinvent that committee to make it more useful for the town, for the committee members, and for the council. So I will be getting back at the next meeting with an idea for that, to try to reinvent and reinvigorate that committee and give them more direction from the council that they'll be able to use to be more useful to us and to themselves. So I hope to come back to the council at the following meeting with more information on that. We will go for a second round of public comment now. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, Council President Lettieri, the Board of Health, we have taken an interest to some degree on what happens at Massport because of the environmental issue. We're working with Chelsea and East Boston, but one of my suggestions, I think about the Airport Hazards Committee, you should give them a little more teeth somehow. I think they felt, some of the members have felt, that they might make recommendations, but they don't have any authority to do anything. So that's just my 2 cents for you to consider. If you give them some more authority, maybe they'll be able to accomplish more.
Thank you. Ms. Chavez, we miss seeing you here.
I was expecting it.
Aaron Chavez, Precinct 2. I'm sorry I'm not here tonight, but because if I didn't know what the parking was and generally the weather, I decided I'd watch it from home. So I've been doing both Zoom and Channel 22, so I've been getting both ends. My usual questions to the town manager, the ferry. Have we heard anything from DEP or Quincy?
So Quincy's meeting with me hopefully this week. Their coordinator had been out, Maureen Geary, so we're meeting with them. Once we meet with Quincy and we get a number from Quincy, then I can go back to MassDOT to close any gaps that we may have or may not have within the ferry budget. Again, MassDOT's commitment was to help us with this year. And only this year. So I just got to make sure I know if there's a deficit, what that deficit is, how was it created, and justify on a 3-year plan to them on how it will be self-sustaining moving forward.
Do you have any idea of what number you would need from Quincy just to be able to put the boat in the water in April?
Just to close out this year from Quincy, I'll need Robbie. I think Robbie's on the line, but it's going to be about $157,000 to close the deficit that is this year. Now, Quincy always partners with us and has always given us a share, so that's not my concern. But we used the reserves in that ferry enterprise account at the beginning of the year to get it up and running and started in as Winthrop's share to run it through the season. So that's where we're at. We will have no reserve money moving forward unless we land a grant or unless the council takes action to appropriate money for that.
So then, once you sit down with Quincy, I hate to be going back and forth, I'll stop it. Once you start with Quincy, then you can send something into DEP, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And also.
Excuse me, it's not, excuse me, Karen. It's not DEP, it's MassDOT.
I'm sorry, why do I keep saying DEP?
Well, we used to get grant money from DEP, but they hadn't given us the grant money last year, even though we did request it.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
And, just to get back to, the snow removal over the weekend, I don't know what the town went through as far as not having enough plows and people and whatever was the issue. But I'm gonna tell you, just with the small piece of property that we had, it was a lot of work for my grandson, my son, and thank goodness a friend of my other grandson, my older grandson, was able to come over and help us out. I can imagine what the town has gone through, knowing what we went through just on Sunday, just looking at the drifts that we had down in the backyard. I mean, some of the drifts were just as high as the fence that goes into the pool area. So I can just imagine. I do appreciate everything that the town does and the DPW. And I do understand the hours that they put in. Being a nurse for many, many years and working through many, many storms, even the storm of 78, living across the street from the hospital, was not an advantage, believe me, at that time. I know the hours that I put in. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will go to public relations. I'll go around the table if anyone has anything. Councillor Honan.
No.
Councillor Fusillo. Councillor Munson.
I do have one thing. I didn't plan on bringing this up. I was just gonna put signs around, but there is a blood drive going on March 11th. I don't know if this is the appropriate time.
That's fine.
Yeah. So March 11th, Friday, March 11th, we're actually hosting another blood drive at the Oddfellows Zenith Lodge at 196 Winthrop Street. You can just use your normal, if you're already a donate blood, just go ahead and just register. There's only a limited number of slots, so please do so. Everyone knows the value of that. Again, Friday, March 11th, from noon to 5 p.m. at the Zenith Lodge at 196 Winthrop Street. Thank you.
Councillor Belcher.
Nope.
Councillor DeMarco.
Just going to reiterate what you said about Frozen Junior. The kids have worked really hard. Get out there and see it if you can. Other than that, let's all hope that Punxsutawney Phil does not see his shadow tomorrow after this storm this week.
Councillor Aiello. Council Vice President Ruggiero.
More snow this weekend, interim town manager, just, any plans for?
Well, I just raised my hand to be recognized, but since you throw it at me, we are expecting rain turning to snow over this weekend. I think we haven't gotten the final results of how close we'll be to snow accumulation, but, everyone, as I said to my wife, we all just need to do a little bit more. And I know to help out DPW, let's all just do a little bit more. So clear your storm drains because it's gonna rain first. The most important thing is to get the flooding away from your house doesn't damage your basements. Clear the storm drains and allow the snow while it's raining to go down the drain. So make more room for hopefully no snow on Saturday morning, but we're hearing at least a couple inches. So we'll start to plan for that as we get better predictions. I think that was the biggest thing. And if you're gonna park your car in the street, shovel out to the curb. We talked about East Boston, Somerville. If you need to know how to do that, go up to East Boston. I was driving up there last night and they dig out right to the curb. These people, I don't know how they do it, and they stack the snow right there and they get their car in. It's 12 inches from the curb, not 12 inches from the snowbank. So please dig out your spot and park your car safely to save your car and also maybe save someone's life if the ambulance or fire truck can't get down there. By you digging out, they're gonna be sure to get down there, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. And again, I will also plug Frozen Junior this Friday, Saturday at 7 o'clock and Sunday at 2. A great event. Get down to the middle high school Shapiro Center. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Council DeMarco, seconded by Vice President Ruggiero. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is passed.